Most people think retirement is something you arrive at. A birthday, a number, 60, 65, maybe later. But that's not how it actually works. There's a specific line, invisible, quiet. And once you cross it, retirement stops being a future plan and starts being a mathematical fact. Most people never realize when they've crossed it. Some never even learn it exists. And that's the problem. Because right now, millions of people are still working, stressing, and investing aggressively, even though mathematically they don't need to anymore. And others are doing the opposite, slowing down far too early without knowing they're nowhere close. This matters now because we're living in a strange moment. Markets feel unpredictable. Inflation changed the rules, and the old advice, just keep investing and you'll be fine, isn't precise enough anymore. So let's talk about the retirement line most people don't know exists. Not as a motivation story, not as a hustle fantasy, but as a system. Imagine your life as two machines. One is you, your time, your energy, your ability to work. The other is your money. For most of your life, the first machine powers the second. You work, you earn, you invest. But retirement begins the moment those machines switch roles. When your money machine becomes powerful enough to run without you feeding it anymore. That moment is the line. And here's the uncomfortable part. That line has nothing to do with age. It's about a ratio. On one side, how much you spend every year. On the other, how much your invested money can reliably generate. Not in a good year, not in a bull market, but across decades. Here's the simplified math most people never hear explained clearly. Historically, a diversified portfolio has been able to support withdrawals of about 4% per year, adjusted for inflation, without running out over a long retirement. That's not a promise, it's a probability. But it gives us a ruler. If you spend $40,000 a year, the line appears around $1 million. If you spend $60,000, it's closer to $1.5 million. The exact number changes with risk, taxes, and behavior, but the mechanism doesn't. The line is when your portfolio can fund your life, even if you never add another dollar. Now here's where irony creeps in. Most people think investing harder always moves them closer to retirement. But after a certain point, investing more barely changes your outcome. Because time does the heavy lifting. Once compounding reaches a certain size, your annual contributions matter less than market movement. That's the part people miss. They keep optimizing contributions when they should be optimizing stability. They keep chasing returns when they should be protecting the system. And sometimes they cross the line without realizing it. That's why you'll see people with 7 figures still terrified to stop working. Not because the math says they can't, but because no one ever told them the math exists. On the flip side, you'll see people retire early because the number looked big, without understanding how fragile their setup really is. This is where hype and reality split. Hype says retirement is a finish line. Reality says it's a balance point. Cross too early, and inflation quietly eats you alive. Cross too late, and you trade years of your life for numbers that won't change how you live. Zoom out, and this becomes bigger than individual decisions. Entire generations were taught to focus on income, not resilience. To chase growth, not sustainability. To fear market drops more than long-term erosion. And now we're seeing the consequences. People who did everything right but still feel unsure. People who did almost enough but don't know where they stand. The retirement line doesn't care about confidence. It doesn't care about feelings. It only cares about inputs and time, which leads to the most uncomfortable question of all. If retirement is a line, not a date, and if that line is mathematical, not emotional, how many people are still running, not because they need to, but because they don't know they've already arrived? And more importantly, if you stopped investing today, would your future still work? Most people have never actually checked.